so much for joining in this beautiful evening here on Facebook Live. And um, particularly each and every one of you are really, you all have been like really good in your fields, especially art, theater, art curation, activism, academics, and all that. Let me introduce you one by one to the audience. I have Jill here, Jill Naverre, who is a theater personality. She is the director of Oroville Theater Group. She's an actor. She's basically from New York, but she has been living here in India for many years. She lives in Oroville. She is an Orovillian. She has done so many number of plays. And besides that, there are so many things to introduce about her. I think she would when we come back to her, I will. And then we have Lara Sherwood, who is an American as well. She lives in Washington, D.C. currently, and she is doing her PhD now on art and the power of art. I think she would, better she would explain it. She's researching on a number of things. She's also currently doing a paper on my activism and art as well. She's a scholar, artist, and very proud to have you, Laura and Jill here. And Vidya is a poet, columnist, and a speaker, and is a multitasking personality. She lives in Coimbatore. I met her first in a college and had the blessing to listen to her amazing poetry. Thank you for joining this evening, Vidya.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
And we have Simran, who is also here.
Hello.
She is an artist and she's also an entrepreneur who is doing the art business. She's also a craftist. She's a multitasking personality as well. So she's also here joining us. I think she's off the camera right now.
No, I'm trying to connect
And
her now. Is it?
oh, okay. And we have Bridget Shibu, who is an art curator, art a gallerist. She is the manager of Art House Coimbatore, and uh, she's
Yeah.
well known among artist circle. She is from Coimbatore, and she is ready to actually share a lot of things that we don't know, because she is, of course, doing a lot of work on research on Frida. And we have Veena, who is a very interesting artist. She does murals, she does abstracts, and she also does surreal paintings. And currently she lives in Coimbatore, but currently she is in Chennai for an art show. Very happy to have you, Veena. And we also
Thank
had
you.
an art, one more artist, abstract and wonderful artist called Ishrat. I don't know why she's unable to join. I think shortly she would, we hope. And this evening is very interesting because it's about the great legendary artist, women artist, who was also a communist who lived in the early 20th century in Mexico. Frida Kahlo was born in Mexico. She was a powerful feminist and artist. Um, at the age of 6, she was actually she had polio, and at the age of 6, uh, from the age of 6, she had a lot of trouble with her body issues, and at the age of 18, she had an accident in which she had it was the beginning of her physical and mental pain as well. And during her lifetime, she created some of the most interesting and wonderful artwork, especially what she was trying to convey through her legendary portraits, self-portraits, through her, especially through symbols in her art, and connecting herself with her inner self and the other personality in herself was very interesting about her. So before I talk more about Frida, Laura is actually here with a very beautiful PowerPoint on Frida. She is a very, very great admirer of Frida. Especially, we have been having art sessions every day for the past 3 to 4 months. Every evening, I and Laura, we both paint and we dance and do everything. So we talk a lot about Frida. She has done so many watercolors on Frida as well. Laura, we are waiting for you to talk first.
Thank you. Thank you, Kalki, for putting this together. It's such an honor to be here with all of you amazing scholars, artists, and just amazing, powerful women. It's just, and Frida, you know, to be talking about Frida is a blessing. She is somebody who I have pictures of Frida all over my house. I have a little meditation book of Frida and her quotes, and oftentimes Kalki and I will read one and just get inspired. And I'm not a painter, but Kalki I'm more of a photographer. That's my art. And Kalki, you know, we started doing this painting thing every day during the pandemic. We would do this thing every day together. And so one of the first things I started to paint was Frida, just playing with watercolors. And so it was that she's kind of my inspiration of, you know, getting comfortable in that area of painting. So without that, I just wanted to share, I'm going to share a little PowerPoint. I'm going to move through it as fast as I can because we have so many amazing speakers. But when we look at this giant book of art that changed the world, Frida is on the very first page, so we can see how important she is in the art world. So I'm going to try, and hopefully we won't have any technical difficulties, to share my screen.
Let's pray we don't have any technical difficulties at all. It feels like we're living in a primitive technology age.
Okay, can you see yourselves?
Oh, yes, we can.
Yes, we do see it.
Okay, let's see if I can get to this, which is the most important. Will it not let me?
Let's see if you could actually do it on a full screen.
Okay, you see this?
Yes.
Are you?
We see your presentation, yes.
Okay, but you don't see me, right?
Yeah.
All right, so
I don't see.
I'm just going to start with just a little bit about me and my research. I've focused on the intersections of art, gender, and activism. I'm most interested in art as a method of transformation, both individually and in community. So making Frida a perfect case study. And Kalki's actually part of my dissertation. And so just to give honor to Kalki's work and the activism that she does. So for me, Frida's a legend who is recognized worldwide. Scholars and artists hold her in high regard for her expression of herself in her life and through her art. As Kalki said, she was born in Mexico in 1907, during a time when women had little rights. It was the time of the Mexican Revolution. She's been labeled feminist, bisexual, activist, artist, nationalist, communist, but who is she really? Her father was Hungarian, Jewish from Germany. Her mother was native of Mexico. So Frida really, to me, symbolizes resilience. She's a role model in the sense that she's experienced so much pain in her life, but everything can be seen expressed through her arts. So like Kalki said, at 6, she had polio, which caused her leg to become thinner. Her father encouraged her to participate in sports, which was typically reserved for boys. So this, I think, helped her with her being able to express gender and be fluid in both, you know, her masculine and feminine sides. This is a picture taken by her father where, you know, you can see her dressed in a suit. And so, you know, throughout her life, she was very comfortable with her gender expression. So like Kalki said, at age 18, you know, she had been working she had planned to go to medical school, and then she had an accident. She was taking a bus, and it was hit by a tram, and she was impaled to her pelvis, her spine, and her hip. And so that left her injured for a long period of time. So what happened was she was in her bed for several months, and her mother placed a mirror above her bed where she started to paint. And one of her very first paintings was a painting of herself that she was giving to, she painted it for her lover Alejandro. So that was her very first self-portrait and the beginning of her career as an artist. So her mother, when she met Diego Rivera, who was a famous muralist, she had met him when she was going to school, and you know, there's funny jokes of her teasing him and whatnot. But her mother called it the relationship between the elephant and the dove. And he was 20 years her senior, and they were married during that time. So Frida, one of Frida's things was she was very she was an activist. She was very involved in the communists. She was considered herself to be very proud of her culture and her heritage. And Diego as well was very involved in the communists. And he painted a lot of paintings that represented that time and his expression. And this is one that's very interesting to me, because this is when Frida, Diego had been hired to do murals in the States. And when they went to the States, this image here of Frida is, you know, the wife that dabbles gleefully in artwork. I found so interesting, because the way they depict her is this modern American housewife with, you know, the apron and, you know, being just the dutiful housewife, when in reality, she, during that time, wore her traditional clothes. She was known for dressing with lots of jewelry and flowers and just beautiful flowy skirts. And the way she felt about the States wasn't the way that, you know, they're depicting her. She didn't like it. She didn't like the way people were. She didn't like the elitism. She was very humble in her way and very connected to her roots. So when she came to the States, she found it very, people just snobby. In this one was taken when Frida, this was Frida's, she painted this after she was in the States and she had a miscarriage. And she called it the Henry Ford Hospital. During this time, she was expressing her pain and all that she went through, and in her art. And for her, I have some quotes. Let me find those that she said. So she said, this was during 1932. She said, "My paintings carry within it the message of pain. Painting compelled my life. I lost 3 children. Painting substituted for all of this. I believe that work is the best thing. My paintings are the most frank expression of myself, without taking into consideration either judgments or prejudice of anyone." So that was her mode of expression through her art. Her relationship with Diego was very, he was a womanizer and had many affairs. And the one that really broke her heart was when he had an affair with her sister, Christina. That was the one that she said that was the hardest to forgive. But throughout her life with him, they were married and divorced and married again. And they just had this love. She had this intense love for him. In her journals, there's just entry after entry of just her expression of love for Diego. And Frida herself had many affairs. She had affairs with both men and women. And so that made her an icon for both feminists and LGBTQ communities and artists, and just revered her as being, during this time in the 20s, to be so free and express herself freely was, you know, makes her just an icon in itself. So what happened in Frida had her first show. She was recognized. The first person that really who bought her art, she realized that when she sold art, that she could then be have financial independence, and it was something that she hadn't had because she had always been, you know, dependent on Diego, because that's just the way it was at that time. But she realized that she could have financial independence, and she was invited to New York, and she did a gallery. And during that time, she was artists like Picasso and other famous artists really adored her. And these earrings, these hand earrings, are actually a gift from Picasso.
Oh, wow.
The two Fridas. This is the one of her paintings that she's most famous for. And this she expressed in her journal that this was, it started out to be an expression of, she had an imaginary friend as a child because of being so isolated and sick a lot. And then she, during this time as she was painting it, she was going through the divorce with Diego. And so she explains that it was very painful, sad, but she also explains that this is the traditional, you know, Mexicana Frida that he adored, and this is the more European dressed Frida that he didn't love. So that was her explanation of this painting and what it represented for her. But it also represented a way of her communicating with herself and her going within and healing herself. In her hand, there's a little picture of Diego. So she always used him in her paintings and in her work. And during this time, Frida started to she had to have multiple surgeries. And so she ended up spending a good part of, you know, the next 10 years of her lives from, you know, in the 1940s until her death in bed and being encased in these corsets, which were very painful. But she, you know, Frida continued to paint, and she continued to, you know, do the work that she loved in spite of her, you know, pain and limitations, and being able to, you know, get out and be, you know, out in the world the way she normally was. So this is a very interesting, so what Frida was honored with doing a one-woman show in Mexico, and she was very proud of this, but she was bedridden at the time. And she had them take her 4-poster bed to the gallery where she could then be, you know, she could be there and be present. So that was a really unique thing about her, is that she wanted to be seen. She wanted to honor her Mexican heritage, and she wanted to showed that she was, you know, she was still out and about. So in one of the other, in the Communist Party, she'd actually had an affair with Leon, and that was one of the things that she talks about in a lot, and is, you know, known for, is her commitment to the communists and her work in demonstrating. But all the way up until 11 days before her death, you can see her, you know, going and demonstrating. She was very active in this, and even some of her very last entries in her diary is her talking about wanting to be more supportive and do more for the demonstrations and the work. So these are just some of the her diary entries. In 1954, this is where they're talking about she amputated her leg, and she's she's feeling suicidal. And then again, 1952, she's very positive. I think this is one of the very few images I've seen of Frida where she's actually smiling in that, you know, just candid way. And this was Frida's last painting. She painted it as a representation in Mexico for the Day of the Dead. And so the watermelons represent life. So Viva la Vida is long live life. And so that was one of her last paintings. And so I think that's the end of my, I'm going to stop sharing. Did it stop sharing?
Thank you, Laura. That was amazing.
There's so much that I would love to share, but you know, I know we have so little time, but Frida is the most interesting, and I encourage everyone, anybody watching or seeing this after, to go. There's tons of books on Frida, so, and I'm sure we have lots of other wonderful things that we're going to learn. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Especially you shared so many things that a lot of people would love to actually know. I mean, the details of her life timeline that you shared was particularly wonderful. I mean, she not only had the physical pain throughout her life because of the polio, and as well as because of the accident that happened when she was 18. I heard that she had more than more than 30 surgeries
Yeah.
in her body throughout her 47 years of age. And just before a week of her death, one of her legs, I'm not sure which leg, it was actually amputated, of course.
Yes.
So she lived an extremely painful physical pain, as well as because of her disappointment with her lover husband, Tiago. I think she was heartbroken as well, but she never lost her spirit for fighting for equality, fighting for gender. I mean, in spite, and she is a great icon not only for women because she's a feminist, but she's also an icon for communists who believe in socialism, and also a very important figure for LGBT people. She has been an amazing icon for the LGBT community, has still remained as an important figure. There's so much to explore about her. Uh, I'm moving to Jill right now, who is having her dinner, enjoying her dinner. Enjoy. Okay, we are not able to hear you, Jill. I hope your audio is not muted. Okay. I don't know. We'll come back to you. I'd love to connect with Simran.
Yeah,
Simran, you have been a big fan of Frida.
I have.
I mean, you talk a lot, and I know you have actually been doing a lot of things, reading a lot about Frida, and also I can also see some of your work, paintings and all that, which actually celebrate her,
Yes,
celebrate the artist, Frida.
yes.
Uh, can you talk about how Frida actually inspired you?
So I think for me, I've been drawing since I was a child. But, you know, living in Indian society, I didn't fit into the exact good girl, good Indian girl. I was in school, I went and colored my hair. I was the one who used to beat up boys. I was the one who used to throw stones at people. There are lots of things that I used to do. All, you know, really not so nice girly stuff. And I was always told that is incorrect, that is wrong. Girls don't do such things. And then when I moved back, I mean, when I was in college, when I went to art school, I that's one person I related to. Frida was one person I think it just fell into my lap. Frida, I just stumbled upon a book, and then I was like, oh, so what? All the things that I've been doing all my life are correct. At least somebody on this planet says they are right, if everybody else around me. So sometimes what happens is when people tell you, when everyone else around you thinks a certain way, you think you're incorrect, but that's not true. Maybe somebody else thinks you're right. And for me, that was Frida, because I related a lot. I still do, because, like the things that she says, that I'm broken, but I'm happy as long as I can paint, which is me, because every time I've been broken in my life, I pick up my paints and I paint, and that's the best art that I ever make when I am broken. So, I joke with a friend. I was like, okay, so I need to be broken to make good art. So, consciously or subconsciously, I need to break myself or somebody needs to come and break me to make amazing art. But for me, that is something which is why I am a big Frida fan, because I think somewhere down the line, she gives me this power to continue to be myself. And there's something that says that, you know what, you're right. There's nothing wrong about you. Whatever you're doing is perfectly fine. And like the way she says, this is one of my books, and then the way she says, um, at the end of the day, you can endure much more than what you're capable of, which is what, for me, art and Frida are like. I think I'm a Frida fanatic, not because of other things, but I think it's more that I relate to her, and I think she calms me down. Every time I read a quote about Frida, every time I read a book, I have a couple of books, and I have multiple copies of the same book, because I have a lot of friends gifting me Frida earrings,
Okay.
Frida books. So I think for me, I kind of resonate with her, and it calms me down. Frida calms me down in a very comforting way. So that's.
Which is your favorite Frida book?
So I have a couple of them, which I have. So this is one. This I gifted to myself last year. I
I
gifted
don't
this
have
one
this
to
book.
myself, and I've
Okay.
written here like, dear self, you deserve much more than what you think you do. Happy birthday. So that's what I wrote to myself. I said, you deserve much
Lovely.
more than what you think you do. So this is in 2018, and I have 3 copies of this book because 2 were gifted to me, and this is the other one.
Oh, okay.
This is a beautiful. This is a picture book, and I must show you one more. Sorry, I couldn't jump. So this is a limited edition. This is a miniature. This is a
Yeah,
limited
yeah, yeah.
edition.
I've seen it in so many places on the internet, and I
Yes,
wanted to
yes.
own one.
Yeah. So a friend of mine got me this. This is from the US. This is
Yeah,
it's a
I know.
miniature,
Yes,
and this is
because in India we don't get it.
you don't get this. This is my birthday
Or it's
gift.
very expensive.
It is. It was my. I think it's like one of my favorite. It was because she said it was a limited edition, and it's a
Okay.
miniature, and it's really quite expensive. So I'm okay. I'm fine. So this is there, and then there's this bird, and you can take the bird off and put a heart there. I can't find the heart now. It's there somewhere. So, but you could put like a bleeding heart. So there's a bleeding
Oh,
heart in
okay.
that. Yeah. So that's the miniature of Frida, and she's on my table.
Uh, what is it made of, that doll? Is it made of wood,
It's made of
fiber, plastic,
it's made of
wood?
acrylic. It's like hard. I think it's hard plastic. It's,
Okay,
it's quite
okay,
hard. It's really hard. So I
okay.
it's
So
not
you
wood.
have a precious Frida.
Yes. No, but I think like I mentioned, for me, more than her paintings and more than any of that, I think I relate to her and I resonate with the fact that I'm doing fine in life. I think that's more
Okay,
important. So yeah.
okay, okay. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing your love
And
for Frida,
thank you,
especially.
Kalki, for having me. I was super excited the moment when you said, I was like, okay, this is it. I'm super thrilled.
There's no other better person than you who is a big, big crazy fan of Frida
I
and who
am, I
knows
am. And
so
I
much.
paint a lot of her. I paint a whole lot of her because
Okay.
Bridget has seen a couple of my paintings and I've gifted them all. So there was one painting which I made where Frida is with her cigarette and she says, it's all about cupcake and love. That's all that I want in life. It's just cupcakes and love. I'm fine
Okay.
with, I don't want anything else. Yes.
I've done a couple of Fridas. One is right now in Germany, and the one is actually in Chennai.
You've done some
And I'm
beautiful
doing my
ones.
third Frida. It's actually a work in progress right now. I do. Here it is.
Oh, wow.
It's actually
That's
a pop
beautiful.
art. It's actually a pop art. I'm working right now. I
That's,
mean, the
that's
nose is
beautiful.
not. The nose needs to be a little plastic surgery has to be done for Frida with my. But I've been enjoying doing this, and besides this, I've also done many paintings. I love painting Frida.
Yeah.
I
I
think
have I
she's one
have
of the
these
iconic
I have these
figures I've
pair of
enjoyed.
this pair of earrings.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. And I must share. So this is another one. This is the one that I'm wearing. And I think I
Okay,
just missed the 2 years ago I did a backpacking trip with my friends to Prague and Budapest. And we just missed like I just so Frida's this was in 2018. Frida's
hmm,
original paintings were being exhibited in the Budapest castle, and the
okay.
the museum, we reached at 6:05 and they shut at 6. So I just missed,
Oh,
and we were leaving the next morning. So I was like, so they were in Budapest, but her original paintings, they brought it down from Mexico to Budapest castle and they were,
oh,
presenting it
okay.
there. So I missed, and we were leaving next day. So yeah, tough luck there.
I think in 2018, when I actually went to San Francisco, I went to MoMA, Museum of Modern Art,
Yeah,
and I just happened to see only one work. I mean, I was still lucky to see one work of Frida, Diego and Frida together
Frida.
in one painting, where he looks like a giant and she looks like a little bird, the elephant and the dove.
Yeah.
that particular painting was there. I was really thrilled. But actually, in reality, the painting is a little shorter. I mean, it's only an A3 or A4 size, but it speaks volumes about her love and her personality and their love affair.
Yeah.
Really,
I think for me,
yeah, yeah.
personally, Frida, the more I read about her, the more, like Laura was saying, the more you read about her, I think the more energy you get to move on with life. The more you feel like, okay, there's some energy driving you and pushing you to achieve more personally, professionally, as a woman, as like I've many a times I've related to her where I've looked up to her, I've spoken to her. I have this doll, I have these earrings, I have these books. I kind of like, what do I do now? And then I've just flipped through the book and I was like, okay, you know what? It's not that bad. She was in a worse situation. I'm still okay. I can handle this. And then I move on. So that her paintings speak a lot about, and they help you move on with life. That's that's
Oh,
also.
yeah, yeah, that's very true. Thank you so much for
Thank you
actually
so much.
joining that wonderful interpretations as well as your love for Frida.
Yeah.
I would love to see your earrings
Yes,
when I have the
I will.
opportunity
Sure, for
to
sure.
meet you. And you said you're going to gift me.
Yes, I have two pairs of these, so I'm going to gift you one. For sure. I have to
Okay,
see
I hope.
that. See, I have two pairs, so one pair is yours.
Okay. I hope I will be able to um, get it.
I
I
will send
really
that
look
to you,
forward
for
to.
sure. Yes.
Jill is here. I hope Jill is able to speak.
Hello, I'm Jill Navarre from the Orville Theatre Group, director, playwright, sometimes actor. I was very happy to be invited to speak about Frida Kahlo. I've always been fascinated by her determination, by fierce, her fierceness, her fierce artistry, and her courage. To many women, especially in the arts, she's been an inspiration, someone who defied the odds to create her own work, her own sense of herself, her own light in the world. And for this, I'm very happy that she's being honored today. For Frida, it was a great struggle, physically, emotionally, mentally. First, because of her physical disabilities, the actual pain that she had to endure, survive, and yet go on to produce some of the most enigmatic and startling works of the 20th century. There were the portraits, her own personal portraits, deep, unblinking looks into the very soul of the artist. And then for me, there were the surrealistic paintings, which were evidence also of her deep search into the inner life of the artist. What was going on with her? What were the symbols that she used supposed to mean? People are still puzzling over them, I suppose. And the enigma of these symbols created a kind of legend around Frida. I think she enjoyed that. I think she honored her own uniqueness and strove always to become more, to penetrate more, to go deeper, to be the source of her own freedom and self-worth, struggling with physical pain, love affair, reaction from the world. She had both moments of deep despair and great joy. And she conveyed them all through her art. She transformed these moments into something that we would call art. And for that, I would like to deeply honor her on her journey with gratitude to the journey of the hero or the heroine in this case, as Joseph Campbell would say, the journey of the heroine towards self-discovery and self-realization. And on her journey, of course, she met many obstacles and conquered them, sometimes was conquered by them. A very human struggle, a very human story, at the same time an extraordinary one, a superhuman effort, sometimes it seemed, to remain true to herself and to create something out of that journey. I thank you, Kalki, for inviting me to this talk about Frida, and I thank Frida Kahlo for being unassailably who she was. Thank you. I'm Jill Naverre. I'm the director of the Orville Theater Group. Please visit us on our webpage. We also have a Facebook page. So glad to be a part of this, and thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much on that. Particularly your views and opinions on Frida as a character, that is as an artist and woman and feminist and communist and all that. Particularly your vision and the way you see Frida as an artist and as a character is interesting. Thank you so much for sharing your opinion. I'm waiting to listen to Vidya now because uh, her view as a poet is what something I wanted to really know from Vidya. Vidya, you are like you've been exploring Frida a lot recently. Even though you know a lot about Frida, recently you've been exploring a lot about Frida. Could you tell me what inspires you in Frida?
Thank you so much, Kalki, for this opportunity to speak about Frida Kahlo. I have to start by telling you that because I was invited to the panel, I got to do a lot of research into this artist that I have known, but on an extremely superficial surface, especially in comparison to you and all the other members in the panel who were so articulate. So I had the opportunity to read up on her and to look at her work in minute detail, and I'm really grateful for that. Frida Kahlo said that I paint my own reality. I think it's a sentence that we can all identify with, no matter what our creative space is. I write my own reality, you paint your own reality. But what Frida Kahlo did was that she made it acceptable for women to do the same, for other women to do the same. And that's an interesting concept for me, that she was a torchbearer, that she allowed other women, she paved the way for other women to actually do the things that she had done. And she did it from a world of pain. Yes, 55 of her 143 paintings are self portraits, and why not? She spent so much time in her own company, recovering from such a debilitating accident that she had to go through. She spent so much of her short life in so much pain, so many surgeries, the trauma of which she depicted in her work. As a poet, I understand that. I believe my poems are often a space where I want to say something I cannot normally articulate because we are bound by some of the constraints society places on us, including behaving in a certain way and not saying what we want to say. So in my world, I like to believe that my poetry is a space where I can actually say exactly what I'm thinking. So I admire that courage and that exuberance and that free spiritedness with which Frida Kahlo did depict her life. That same free spiritedness is also seen in her embracing and her promoting of her Mexican culture. You can see it in her attire, of course. You can see it in how beautiful and colorful her clothes were. You can see it in her portraits. You can see it in her drawing, in her artwork. She lived for the cause, and it's extremely interesting for me to see it. I am a poet from India. I'm a poet from a small city like Coimbatore, and I enjoy the idea, and I want to embrace it, and I do embrace it. And I think there is another parallel that I draw, if I'm allowed to draw, if I may be so arrogant to draw that parallel between this fabulous artist and I. I think all through her work, she has asked the question, what does it mean to be a woman? And in India, where a woman means that you need to bear children, it is especially interesting how she went about answering this question. I believe it is the Henry Ford Hospital portrait where she depicts in extremely raw, excruciating detail the loss of a child through a miscarriage. There is so much heartbreak in that painting. It is not something you can stand in front of or look at and say, oh, how lovely, it makes me feel better. No, it's meant to make you feel something extremely painful because she was going through something so painful. For someone to actually talk about an experience that is that personal, hats off to it. It takes a lot of courage to do it, and in the time that she did it in, today people may actually speak about it and depict it, but not when she was painting, and I find that very, very inspiring. You had asked me to talk about a painting that of hers that I like. I like the two Fridas. I have to say I love the juxtaposition. But if I had to mention one painting that struck me, I would say it was The Last Supper or The Wounded Table. You'd mentioned that it was around the divorce from Diego Rivera when she painted it, and he is very much there in the painting in his blue overalls. You can also see her sister Christina's children. Christina, of course, is the woman with whom Diego Rivera cheated with, among the other women, but this one hurt the most because she is Frida's sister. You can see Frida there. There are a series of Fridas sitting at the table, and there is something very lost and sad about the Frida that we see in that painting, which is at odds with the image that we have of her of being a survivor, being very powerful. And I like the references in that you really need to research those references. At least I had to. There's Judas, there are a lot of Mexican culture symbols, and that was an interesting painting actually for me to see. You know what strikes me the most is how comfortable she was with herself in the sense of not shying away from the fact that there were deformities, there were scars. She depicted them. I think she made a strong cause for body positivity long before it became the buzzword that it is right now. How revolutionary and how powerful when a woman says, this is my body, this is what I have been through, this is what it has done for me, and I'm going to celebrate it. That power and that courage with which she led her life is the reason why she created art that is often called something that changed the world. And for this and many, many reasons, I remain forever an unabashed Frida Kahlo fan. Thank you, Kalki.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your views, especially as a poet. It's very inspiring. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. You're welcome. And we also have Bridget, who is an art gallery manager as well as of art house. And she's an art lover, art curator, and homemaker. She does multiple jobs right now. She's also an amazing baker as well. Um, and she also promotes lovely homemade non-alcoholic wine and all that. So art and wine always go together. So she chose the right she chose the right business, of course. I'm happy that you're here, Bridget.
Thank you, Kalki. That was a very good introduction. Kind of publicity, I should say. Hey,
Yeah, I would love
I'm
to
listening
hear
to
your views on Frida, especially as a curator. How do you see Frida's paintings? And you could also talk about her life a little bit, if you wish.
I have only three things to tell because most of it is covered by Laura, Jill, Simran, and to add to
Yeah.
it, Srividya also touched few things about Frida.
Yeah.
And see, we screened Frida's movie, documentary twice in Coimbatore, one in 2010 and the other one in 2019. We had a lot of mostly film screenings on art, documentary on art. We can see only artists coming in. But when it comes to Frida, we have a lot of other people coming and visiting, their presence will be there to watch their because it's like very easy. One, it's easy for them to connect themselves because it's very colorful. And the second thing is they can connect themselves with. I'm not able to talk the pain, what I suffer, but Frida has happily done it on her painting. So I can connect myself with the painting. This is what this mentality has in all the viewers. So that is one. And the second thing is very interesting. Satish Gujral, he is an India's Renaissance man who was awarded Padma Vibhushan. And in 1950s, there were a lot of people who wanted to do their scholarship in Paris and London, whereas he went to Mexico. And he did a scholarship with Diego, and Satish Gujral befriended artist Frida. So I'm like so happy that an Indian artist, renowned artist, know who Frida is, and we can just can't imagine how beautiful it would have been to know somebody who is really in pain, but he's a good artist, right? And my favorite painting, if I should say, it's same as what you said, Vidya, the two Fridas.
Fridas. Yeah.
It's like too good. Frida painted this work when she on her return from Mexico following her separation from Diego. It's like very painful. These are the three things I just wanted to put it forward, Kalki.
Thank you.
And one more thing is, there are a lot of art collectors in India, but there is not even one who has Frida's work, which means her work is like millions. They can't.
What do you think is the reason? What do you think is the reason? Not even Ambani could afford it?
I don't know if Ambani is an art collector. I'm not too sure about it. If he was, he would have bought it. Oh my God, Kalki, what are you asking me to spell out now?
I'm just wondering, Ambani. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, a couple of months ago, I think in Denmark, I think in Netherlands a couple of months ago, an artwork from Van Gogh's artwork was stolen, and it was stolen very easily. It was stolen from the gallery, you know. So it was worth millions of euros and millions of dollars, of course. So art haste is a very popular thing because it fetches them so much money in the black market. I think I have loads and loads of things to talk, but from a perspective of as an LGBT and trans activist, not as an artist, but I would like to talk from uh, first as a trans activist as well as an LGBT activist. I'd like to say that Frida was way ahead of her time. She truly was way ahead of time. She broke a lot of rules, norms on gender roles, as well as on in many of her pictures, you would see that she has that little mustache on her upper lip, but she never made an attempt to shave it. And she even painted that mustache. I mean, it was really a statement about being comfortable with your body, you see. Uh, Beyond her pain and all that, she was feeling uncomfortable with her inner self, her body pain and all that. But when it comes to her outer appearances, especially that little hair on her upper lip, it's very visible in her many of her paintings. I think she was flaunting it. That was one quality that I find her as a woman and as a bisexual woman very interesting and very inspiring. That one thing also makes her truly an LGBT icon. I mean, she was the 20th century around the time of she was born in 1921, I think so, and she died around in the 1940s, I think. And when she was 47-year old, it was one of those times when feminism and communism were just budding, when we were actually talking about gay rights, not really about gay rights. In the US, Harvey Milk and the revolution of, for the rights for LGBT people, it was just coming up in the 1950s and 60s. But Frida, I think, as a woman, uh, especially her gender role was very, very uh, fascinating and very, uh, very uncaring, I would say. She never cared about what people would think about us. And particularly when we talk about her sexuality, I think she was not secretive about her affair with neither with men nor with women. I think uh, it was at so many times it was open. Josephine, I think Josephine was her female lover who was also a dancer. Her love affair with both men and women was open, and she was not really flaunting her love affairs, but she was never uncomfortable about it. And I think that way, I think she is truly an icon, a woman to be looked upon, who was born in the beginning of the 20th century, but whose legacy continues to actually inspire generations of artists, feminists, LGBT activists, trans activists. For me, I look at gender as a very fluid one, not as a static one, but as a dynamic one. And from my point of view, I see Frida as a woman, as an artist, as a trans woman, as a bisexual person. Uh, she is so much. She is so many of her. She embodies so many personalities in her, and eloquently she does it. And she is a natural at that. And she is a great, great fashionista. I mean, we are all copying her. I mean, I'm copying her, and I'm not ashamed to copy her because I'm proud to copy her. I am proud to wear this, flower band and her flowery shawls that she always wears. I'm very happy to flaunt, even though some people might have their own criticism. I don't care. And that is also another quality in trans people who are out and open and living like me, who are transgender, is that we are not at all ashamed about our personality, about our gender expression. If we would have been feeling shy or uncomfortable, we would never come out and live our lives as women, as as the other second type women, as transgender women, as openly transgender person. Even though 100 people might argue about, like, I'm sure that many people would have argued or um, questioned about Frida's mustache, you see. The same way many people question me also about my voice, that it is deep and it's somewhere between the scale of a man and a woman, but I don't care. Yeah, absolutely. For me, I've never taken an initiative to change my voice to being so feminine and so soft, because at one point of time I understood that my voice is also my weapon, you see. It protects me from being harassed. And at many instances, I've seen people um, sexually making passes and all that. And when I answer them, sometimes many of these guys, they understand that I'm a trans woman, and they don't do their gimmicks with me because many of them are actually scared of trans people, you see. And of course, it's an ignorance. It is transphobia that they fear about a trans women. But that same factor has actually protected me because I have this deep voice. And of course, this is what is so interesting. Since Jill asked this, I'm so happy to share all this. This is very interesting to me, Frida, as a human being and as an artist, as a woman, feminist, communist, and as a bisexual woman. And I would also say she was a little bit gender fluid as well. She is a totally legendary figure that would be spoken about even after I die. We all are no more. She would stay for another century and more. She would always be an icon. Thank you, Jill, for asking that question to me. Of course, of course. I've been studying her, and also I've been studying Indian women artists. Amrita Shergill, she was known as the Indian Frida. She was an Indian Polish artist who also died at a very young age. And she was also similar to Frida, but Frida was much more open and defining about her body, her pain, her life, her external, both internal and external life. And I think that is where I connect with her. That's where I connect with her as a trans woman. Yeah. And thank you so much for everyone joining this evening. Thank you,
Thank
Jill,
you.
for your wonderful and refreshing views on Frida as a character and as an artist. And Laura, your presentation was mind-blowing. And thank you so much for sharing Frida's life in a very beautiful PowerPoint presentation and timeline extensively. It was a deep knowledge that I think not only each one of us, but also our audience, the viewers of this, who are listening to it and who will be listening to it after this live and also on YouTube when it is actually set it up there. I'm sure lots more is there to share. And of course, um, we hope to see your Frida that you're actually doing now. We all would love to see it if you would post it on Facebook. Yeah, thank you, Laura. And Bridget, thank you so much. As a curist, as a curator, as a gallerist, and as a woman who actually works with so many artists of all kinds, abstract surrealism, and traditional mural paintings and pop art, and you meet so many artists, hundreds and hundreds of artists, and your views on Frida Kahlo was uh, very useful, wonderful, and I cannot thank you enough for joining this evening in spite of your commitments at home and in your business. Thank you so much, Bridget. And I would also like to thank Simran, who is not here. Thank you, Simran, for your wonderful fan moments with Frida and for sharing your earrings and your book and everything. You tend to create more interest in us in being and learning and celebrating Frida. And Vidya, you are wonderful, and especially your interpretations about Frida as an inspiration for your poetry. Maybe I hope you would also write in the future about Frida poetry, and especially about that way you interpreted her as a character, as a poetic personality. It was wonderful and amazing, and I'm so happy that you shared so many facts and figures about her interestingly, like Laura. Thank you everyone for joining this evening.
Thank
All the eminent speakers of this live program, Laura, Jill,
you.
Vidya, Bridget, and everyone, and also people who were not able to join, and the audience who are watching this and will be watching this. Thank you so much for choosing to listen to us and um, share your thoughts and, letting us share our thoughts. Thank you very much for this lovely evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Kalki, for your organizing. Bye, everybody.
I hope we could catch up. Yeah, we could catch up in another session on another artist soon.